Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Emmet Emory Sr. You Better Stand Your Watch Leader and Leadership Podcast. What's happening today in the workplace, I'm going to talk about the workplace a little bit today, is something unique is happening, and I think that we as managers and leaders and leadership need to do a better job of grasping it and taking control of it in the workplace. Leaders across America in the workplace are currently facing a unique challenge, the largest generation gap in history. The workplace is now more age diverse than ever before. For the first time in history, 5 generations of Americans are working together in business across the country. Each of these groups have been influenced by the socio-culture events that took place during the formative years of their lifetimes. That's right, 5 generations. So we have to understand as leaders that the 5 generations that's in the workplace cannot be managed or led on a same level for each one of them. It's not a one-size-fits-all when you got 5 different generations. Not only do you have different characteristics and attitudes within one generation, now you got many different characteristics and attitudes within multiple generations. Now let's take a look at those generations that we have in the workplace. The first generation are called traditionalists. They are from year 1925 to 1945, also known as the silent generation, because children in this era was expected to be seen and not heard. They are also called the lucky few due to their small population size compared to other generations. Traditionalists are generally partners, managers, and senior support staff in the legal workplace. You probably said, wow, traditionalists got to be pretty old to be in the workplace right now. Yes, those are the ones that are not ready to retire yet. Those are the ones that do not consider themselves senior citizens, and those are the ones who still have a lot to give to the business, to the company, to the corporation. This generation are dependable, straightforward, tactful, and loyal. This generation includes people ages 67 and older in year 20 and 23. The Great Depression, World War II, the radio, and movies shaped this generation. This generation is motivated by respect, recognition, and providing long-term value to the company. This generation communication style is personal touch, the touchy-feely generation. Handwritten notes instead of email. This generation worldwide is obedient over individualism. Age equals seniority and advancing through the hierarchy. So they believe in higher within the organization, not going from outside. You have some people that do well in one job and be there for 3-4 years, then go to the next one. This generation believe in staying in that same job for 30, 40, 50 years until you retire. The next generation is called the baby boomers. From 1946 to 1964. I am the last part of that baby boomers generation, 1964. Following World War II, the United States experienced a great elevated birth rate, adding on an average of 4.24 million new babies to the population every year between 1946 and 1964. This generation of baby boomers was a result of a strong post-war economy in which Americans felt confident they would be able to support a large number of children. It's just one population ethnic group having a bunch of kids. It was a lot of them. I think back at this time you had households having 18 kids, 16 kids, 14 kids, 15 kids. There's a lot of brothers and sisters running around. And that was the norm at that time. This generation includes people aged 59 to 77 years of age in 2023. This generation are optimistic, competitive, workaholic, and team-oriented. Vietnam War, Civil Rights Movement, and Watergate shaped this generation. This generation is motivated by company loyalty, teamwork, and duty. This generation communication style is whatever is most efficient, including phone calls and face-to-face. This generation worldwide, its achievement comes after paying one's dues, sacrifice for success. You got to pay your dues to get to the next level. You got to go through things to get to the next level. That's what the baby boomer generation believed in. The next generation is Generation X. That's from 1965 to 1980. It has sometimes been called the middle child generation, as it follows the well-known baby boomer generation and precedes the millennium generation. Generation X also has been called the baby bust generation because its members was born when the high birth rates of the baby boomers decades declined, attribute in part to the introduction of the birth control pill, which first went on the market in the early 1960s. That birth control pill in the early 1960s slowed all that baby boomers down. It has fewer members than the generation that preceded it. That is one of the reasons that Generation X is considered to be forgotten or overlooked when generations are discussed. I had to take a step back and think about that. And I'm thinking, when I'm talking about generations with people, we going over generations, and we never mentioned Generation X. So, like, wow, that is like a forgotten generation. This generation includes people aged 43 to 58 years old in 2023. This generation are flexible, informal, skeptical, and independent. Age academic. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the dot-com boom shaped this generation. Diversity, work-life balance, their personal professional interests, rather than the company interests, motivated this generation. This generation communicated style is whatever is most efficient, including phone calls and face-to-face. This generation worldwide is favoring diversity, quick to move on if the employee fails to meet their needs, and resistant to change at work if it affects their personal lives. They integrate their personal lives in with their work ethics. The Generation X does. Not too many other generations does that, but that generation does. The next generation is the millennials. That's from birth year 1981 to 1996, also called Generation Y, for following Generation X. It was not until 2015 that the millennial generation officially outnumbered the baby boomers in 2020. They became the country's most dominant generation, includes people aged 27 years old to 47 years old. This generation are competitive, civic, and open-minded, and achievement-oriented. This generation is shaped by Columbia, 9/11, and the internet. This generation is motivated by responsibility, the quality of their manager, unique work style. This generation communication style is IM, text, and email. This generation worldview is seeking challenge, growth and development, a full work life, and work-life balance. This generation is likely to leave an organization if they do not like change. They don't like change, they're gonna stick around. They will leave and go work somewhere else. The next generation is Generation Z, from birth 1997 to 2012. Generation Z, or Zoomers, is the youngest and most diverse generation in history. Generation Z is general, the most diverse generation of Americans to date in a variety of demographics. Nearly 50% of they call them Gen Zers, are racial and ethnic minorities, and 1 in 4 identify as Hispanics. Gen Zers have grown up in more diverse settings than the previous generation and have higher percentages of single parent families, mixed race families, and LGBTQ plus parents in legally recognized partnership. They are more likely to reside in cities and metropolitan areas. Generation Z ain't going in the country, so you can forget about that. They probably don't even like hiking. Camping, out the question. So if you're moving to these areas that have these wild animals that come around, the cougars, the beavers, even the raccoons, they're not sticking around. They're going to the city areas and the metropolitan areas. That generation is one building all these big buildings up in the cities. So they make apartment buildings all over the place. They ain't going out in the country. Generation Z. This includes people aged 27 years of age, under 27 years of age. This generation are global, entrepreneur, progressive, and less focused. This generation is shaped by life after 9/11, the Great Recession, access to technology from a young age. This generation is motivated by diversity, personalization, individuality, and creativity. This generation worldwide is self-identified as a digital device addict, value independent, and individuality. This generation prefers to work with millennial managers, innovative co-workers, and new technology. This generation breaks my heart. They don't want to work with baby boomers. They want to work with millennials. So you have to be able to adjust to that. Baby boomers leaders in the workplace, because you're going to get pushback from Generation Z. So now that we have a background and understanding of what these generations are, it gives us a little bit of focus on how to manage the individuals in our workplace. Because we know we have 5 different generations we have to communicate with in the workplace. So how do we lead the different generations in the workplace? Well, first of all, you need to study your workplace environment and learn from each generation. Walk around, communicate, ask them questions, listen to their feedback, listen to the way they talk. Do they say yo? Do they say what's up? Do they say yes, sir? Do they say no, sir? Do they say I, okay, whatever? Then you can figure out which generation is talking to you. So you know how to communicate with the generation. You don't have to change the structure of the workplace because everyone still falls up under the guidance, direction of the policies and procedures of their workplace. It's just that you have to change the approach that you use. For example, everyone knows how to go north. So you won't go north over a period of time the same direction. You change your pattern going north, but the foundation of going north still is to go north. So you share wisdom to the older employees. Share wisdom with them. Talk to them on their level. They're going to share wisdom back. Talk about some experiences, past experience that helped the company develop or to the point they are. If you connect your competitors to the company. So that older person can give you feedback on the wisdom that they have. And talk knowledge to the younger employee. I said talk knowledge. That means you're talking to them. You're not talking at them. The biggest thing with the generation now, the last 2 generations, is sometimes the older generation, which is the baby boomers and the Gen X, have a tendency to talk at them. So they feel like you're downgrading them, you're disrespecting them, and that pushes them back. So talk to them. And then step back, allow them to give you feedback. Now, if that feedback, then you feed off that. Don't just go in like a bulldog. I know my generation, that's the only way they knew, is to go in as a bulldog. Because you're working as a team. My generation believe in team building, teamwork. The other generation, the generation of today, the last 2 generations I mentioned after 5, they're not into the team building. I remember listening to when Kobe passed away, they had a ceremony for him at the Staples Center. And Shaq stood up and he talked about Kobe Bryant. He said it was an incident when all the players on the team was getting upset with Kobe Bryant because he wasn't passing the ball. He was shooting all the balls. He said the players asked him to go talk to Kobe. I guess the both of them was captains at the time. He never said they was or not. He said he told Kobe, he said, the players upset. They said there's no I in team. He said, Kobe said, well, there's a me in there. So Kobe's main frame was, no, there's no I in team, but it's me in there, so I'm I. So me and I is the same. That's this generation. So we can't come to them with this is teamwork, this team building. We got to think as a team because the generation is not thinking in that capacity, the last 2 generations. So we got to groom them and mold them through development and training to understand that they need someone to help them succeed in production, in office practices, in life. Even the military is a struggle to get that other person to work together with that other person. And that starts in boot camp. Next, flex the work hours. The older generation can't work 10 hours, 12 hours. You be lucky you get a half a day from them. That's 4 or 5 hours. Especially if they're on Social Security, then you know they can't go over the hours they're supposed to have are they working throughout the year. So flex the hours. Then the baby boom, flex the hours. Then other generation, flex the hours. Allow them to flex hours so they can have time for leisure. Don't make it just about work. Manage the work-life juggle. Once you get a hold of managing the work-life juggle, then you're going to have a work environment that appreciate the schedule that you give them. As long as that schedule is productive to the point where you don't lose productivity and everyone still get quality time off, you're going to have an effective workplace. The morale is going to be high. And before you know it, everyone's working as a unit, working as a team. You don't have to mention team building or teamwork. Balance priorities. Everyone has priorities. You have kids some of your workers have kids, they have daycare, they have small kids, they have nursery, they have teenage kids, they have functions, they have middle school kids, they have functions such as activities that involve sports and other things that they have to go to. And sometimes those functions not just on the weekend. I remember the past couple of weeks ago, I went to see my granddaughter participate in track and field. She's in middle school. And those events start at 5:30 in the afternoon. And there was none on Saturdays. So parents got to be able to get to those. And depending on where you work, you got to deal with traffic. So balance the priorities of your workers. And each generation is going to be different. The last two generations I mentioned might just need quality time to themselves. They need to get home at a certain time because they're playing a particular game or they're connecting a game with someone in a different country and they need to be there at a certain time to communicate with them as they play that game. No, you can't get mad because they want to get off work on time to go play a game. That's their life. That's their private life. We are more concerned as leaders and managers of the workplace with their work life, not intertwining with their private life. Only way we affect their private life is giving them the time to have a private life. And then you fight the burnout. That means you manage your schedule to the point whereas them generations are working as one unit, whereas they're helping each other, whereas they're hitting productivity time, whereas they're getting out in a reasonable time. On some days, they're getting out early. That way you're not getting burnt out. You're not asking your go-to player to work 6 days. You're not asking your good workers to work 6 days, and the person who has attendance problems, he working 3 and 4 days. He or she working 3 or 4 days. No. In order to fight the burnout, you got to make sure you have a balanced priority in the workplace, making sure that everyone's treated fairly and equal. And don't make the mistake of judging your employees based upon their age. You have some younger ones as more mature than some older employees. You have some younger employees based upon the structure of their household and the way it was raised is more disciplined than some of the older employees that have been working there probably 15, 20 years. So don't burn your good young workers out and have your older senior workers who've been there for a while enjoy their liberty. I use the word liberty because I'm a Navy vet. Enjoy their time off. Everyone should have the equal amount of time off. Balance workplace priorities. Next, show respect. You as a manager and leader need to respect your employees. If you're 40 and you have a manager who's 25 and your youngest child is 23, you looking at that manager as being equal to your child. Don't do that. That's a manager in the workplace that's going to manage individuals who's in their 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, because that individual has earned the right to be in a leadership position, not based upon their age, but based upon their knowledge and their ability to get the job done. Remember, you are managing a workplace that has 5 different generations, 5 different mind frame, 5 different attitudes, 5 different viewpoints, and underneath one company policy and procedure. But it's still going to fall back up on the ethics. It's still going to fall back up on the upbringing. That's always going to be there, whether in the workplace or at home. So encourage young employees to respect older employees. If you hear a younger guy say, "Oh, I ain't got time for that old dude. That old cat don't know what he's talking about. Man, that dude need to go ahead and retire." That's disrespectful. Or to encourage older employees to respect young employees. Don't accept the older employees. "Oh, that young cat got milk behind his ear. Oh, that young buck haven't experienced life yet. Oh, this one is a good one. I've been to the bathroom along with that person, been a manager." Disrespectful. So you telling me this person who's probably in his 30s and you probably in your 60s, who has a degree, who went through college, who went through the rigors, who earned what they have, and who's supposed to be your boss, should not be respected for his position and his knowledge because of his age, his or her age? That's where we are right now in the workplace. I've got 15, 20, 30, 40 years in this business. They don't understand what it takes to be a manager. Well, maybe you don't understand what it takes to be a manager in this generation, but you did understand what it took to be a manager in your generation. So the morale that we have that's struggling within our workplace is based upon what the manager and the leaders give to that workplace. That cause it to have either a positive or a negative morale because they didn't go through training and development, or they're resistant, or they refuse to listen to how to manage 5-generation workplace. The same thing goes for the younger manager towards the older. I got new ideas. Innovation has caused things to be different than what it was in the past. They used typewriters back then. Now we're using keyboards. You know how difficult it was to use a typewriter back then? You don't know. Man, it was tough. It's easy to use a keyboard. But see, you guys don't, the younger generation doesn't know that because they didn't have that experience of doing that. The other thing, you know how tough it was learning how to do cursive writing back then? And now I'm talking like a baby boomer. These younger generation, I don't even know if they use cursive writing or not. I think they got a stamp that has cursives on it, cursive writing. Or they go into the computer and they do the e-signing. Do you know how tough that was? I'm sorry, I got stuck on the cursive writing thing. I told my granddaughter and my grandson, you guys know how to curse write. They do that in school now. Both of them, and they never on the same page. Both of them look at me at the same time and say, what's that? Oh my God. Next, be a trustworthy leader. Give the older generation a command and control type of leadership. Why? Because that's what they want. They believe in that authoritarian but fair communication and treatment because that's the way it's raised for that generation. A little bit of Gen X too. That's the type of communication they have. But that's not for them. If you, the senior director or director, treat your managers and your leaders that way and communicate with the older generation that way, that's not for you to go back and do it to the employees. Give the younger generation the opportunity to be included more in decision making. That's what I mean by the authoritarian. The baby boomers and some of the Gen X was that. They believe in, okay, this is what it takes to be a team. You got to learn your dues. You don't ask no questions. You just do what you're told. If you're told to take the garbage out, you take the garbage out. Well, that garbage may not have anything to do with your job. If you're told to go in there and clean the kitchen and the sink in the employees' cafeteria, you're going to do that. Well, it might not have anything to do with your job. But the baby boomers back then, the older generation, just did it. Went clean, then went back and did their job. This generation now not going to do it. They're like, why I got to do that? What do I have to do with my job? And then they'll follow up with this one. Are you going to pay me more to do it? Am I going to get paid to do that? Because when I was hired, I got hired for this job. And I need more money anyway. So now you're talking about the money part with this generation. It's all about the mighty dollar. So you have to balance your priorities. That involves your communication as well. Next, and this is very important, because if you don't do this, the younger generations is going to rebel, they're going to attack, and then they're going to reject and walk away. Control office politics. That includes favoritism. That includes you coming into the office, leader, manager. You got 4 people in there. You only talk to one person. You share information with just one person. You got the other 3 still there. The other 3 works for you. Other 3 on your payroll. And then that one goes straight to you and communicate with you, manager, leader. But the other 3 not allowed to communicate to you in that manner. Why is that? Some of you call that a go-to person. Well, that's my go-to person. I communicate with my go-to person, then the people behind them go and help him. What makes you think that the other 3 don't know as much or more as that one? Maybe because they're less vocal than that one, therefore they don't stand out. Or maybe because you haven't given the other 3 a chance to stand out as that go-to person. Office politics refer to the informal power structure, relationships, and unspoken rule that governs interaction within the workplace. That unspoken rule is never written anywhere. You never find it in HR policy and procedures. You don't do that here at this company. That's not allowed at this company. So you're looking for that unspoken rule. So wait a minute, I didn't see that rule. Or you get this one. You go to your HR policies. You go to HR orientation. And this is a good one. The HR tell you, if you see anything wrong that's not within the norms of the structure of the company, step out, let somebody know, tell them what's going on, Nothing's going to happen to you because this company takes pride in you stepping forward and identifying the things that's wrong from another person that's negative, bully, time theft, lying, cheating, favoritism. This is all supervisor leaders to employees I'm talking about. And I'm talking about employee at this point. So the employee come back and say, hey, I've seen this violation by this manager. And what did the company do? Oh, that's a manager. That manager been here for 5-6 years. That employee, they're dime a dozen. We can get another employee. We're going to back their manager. Manager might be guilty, don't know what. Now you got the employee saying, wait a minute. I came forward. I did everything they asked me to do. And then the manager begins to do negative things towards the employee. Leader begin to set up the employee. And then that go-to person for that employee falls behind that manager. Now you just condemn, cause this person to be less motivated towards the company because they came forward when they saw something negative happen with a manager. And then that employee end up either getting fired or walking away. And this is the kickback right here. 2, 3, 4 months later, you get evidence to find out that manager was doing that manager was wrong. And what you do? You terminate that manager. But you never go looking back to see what happened to that employee, that associate. You never call that individual and say, I apologize, I'm sorry. You can have your job back. I give you a $5 increase. No, that's absurd. You save your faith. You keep your face. You don't communicate that person, out of sight, out of mind. This generation takes that personal. My generation turns the other cheek. Don't say anything. This generation might take it personal to the point where you might end up getting workplace violence because they feel disrespected. Communication change. Openly accepting that the workplace is now very different. The new employees will not accept that the workplace is different because when they're coming in, the younger employees, because when they come in, the workplace is already at that state through innovation that they come in at. It's the older employees that might be resistant to change, might feel it's better to keep doing it the way they're doing it, not give it innovation a chance to show its face. So you have to convince them to the point where they openly accept that the workplace is now very different. And when they do that, you're going to see the workplace environment do a drastic change. Your bottom line might double, might even triple. And that grows the company, that grows the employees. Providing unambiguous guidance on what is important. Don't waste your time with tedious stuff. As I said before, balance your priority. Make sure that your guidance is based on what's important. And what's important in the workplace is based upon policy procedures, SOPs. You don't have to invent the wheel. The wheel is already made. You just got to follow it. You can always add addition, leadership, procedures, but you're not overhauling it completely. So it's already there. So you're giving guidance on what is important. If another step fall in through innovation that says that's important, well, it'd be one of many things that's important, not just that one. Tell employees exactly how to apply new values. Training and develop the generations to work with each other by telling them why they're doing something. I want you to do this because of this, and this is how it relates to this, and this is how it's going to connect to what ketchup is doing. Now, mustard generation in the youngest generation knows what they're doing connecting to the older generation. And what mustard is doing is not going to be effective and complete until ketchup come on board and ketchup complete their part. And if that's part of productivity, then they're going to work together to get it done so they can get off. Facilitating company conversations and open discussion. Communicate the information that you get managing leaders from above. They're not going to assimilate information to you unless it's important information. They're not going to send gossip information down for you to give to your employees. No. The information they give you, simulated among your employees. And if you have to have open discussions with it, have open discussions. The older generation is not going to talk and discuss that. The younger generation is going to communicate with you. And they're going to get their viewpoint. And they're going to tell you why they think that it's not right. They're going to tell you a method that you can use to make sure that you can get it done through a shortcut method. Because, the two younger generations know how to do a lot of shortcut. And then you have to explain to them why shortcut can cause issues and concern involving safety and other things if it does. If it doesn't, if the shortcut is effective, use it. And include that into your SOPs or implement it into your policy and procedures. You should always be open and willing to change. Sharing success and feedback across the company. Let the company know if mayonnaise done something good. That means production, numbers. Tell it in the meeting. Send it through email. Include the higher up people in that email. Tell them on shifts, first, second, third shifts. Tell it in the first 10-minute meeting. Say it each day throughout the week. Recognize those individuals. Let them know that you're looking at them. Let them know that you support them. Let them know that you got their back. 5 generations. And that first generation still like to be recognized too. That baby boomers generation still like to be recognized too. Why? Each individual, any individual in a workplace like to be recognized for what they do. That shows that you care about them and you see what they're doing and you recognizing what they're doing. Effectively retain talent. Leave that employee room to advance. Don't bring that employee, say you hiring a manager on for $60,000 cap. You're not going to bring that manager in at $60,000 because that's what you capped out at. You're going to bring that manager in between 55, 58. What you just do, you left room for advancement for that individual. So as they continue to progress and get better and understand their work, now they got something to attain. They got something that motivates them to go further. The pay increase. Then after a while, you could probably increase that cap based upon what the market is and based on what your competitors are paying their employees. Respect and recognition, as I talked about earlier. Respect the individual and recognize the individual. Better quality of life. I'm not talking about the home, I'm talking about the workplace. Health and safety is very important in any workplace. COVID gave us a step up on how we can clean up the workplace and make sure it's clean. Just keep it that way. Fair compensation. You know what your competitors paying their employees. Trust me, your employees know what their competitors are paying their employees too. So you gotta make sure that your wages are fair and competitive. Because if they're not, they're gonna go somewhere else to get even $1 more. So make sure your compensations are fair and balanced across the board. Now, according to Jack Kelly in Forbes magazine, it's easy to slap a stereotype label on each cohort. The eye-rolling, cliche tropes are that boomers are set in their ways and afraid of new technology. Gen X couldn't care less about what people think about them. Millennials want a trophy for everything they do. At Gen X, the largest generational demographic in the United States, at more than 90 million strong, are inspired to be TikTok influencers. Those are labels that's put on those generations. You got to overlook those labels as leaders and managers. I want to thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. We went through these generations, the 5 generations in the workplace. A lot of managers and supervisors don't know how to cope with that, don't know how to deal with that. Before I leave, I'd like to say happy birthday to Gustavo. He's my stepson. I guess if we continue to grow, develop, and communicate as a family, maybe someday we can get that step off of that. I know my wife and I will be married 1 year, May 20th. I also like to say congratulations to my granddaughter. Once again, she got all A's this quarter. They say that sometimes it skips a generation for knowledge of sports or things of that nature. So I told my son and my granddaughter's mother that she skipped that generation and she on my generation with the knowledge. That's why she got all them A's. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Until I see you again, God bless you and goodbye.